Life Check Yourself with Riana Malia. From stuck to unstoppable. Clearing trauma, rewiring your mind, and creating the life you deserve. Welcome back to Life Check Yourself. I promised you I would start an episode and just not say how excited I was right at the beginning. And I did, but now I'm going to tell you I'm excited. Riana Malia is here. Oh my gosh. We were talking for just a second before we started recording, and she was talking about her Clear to Create method and her quantum pattern protocol. And like, this is something that you have probably never heard before. Riana has a cool name, obviously, but she's also an accomplished transformational coach. And she's trained in what she calls Evolved Neurolinguistic Program, ENLP. So it sounds like it's a little different from NLP. Also quantum time release. And she's an advanced trauma care coach who empowers ambitious women to live confident and trauma-free lives. She's been doing this for over 20 years. She's helped hundreds of women find love, create personal and professional pivots, and overcome all sorts of obstacles to help them live their best lives. She's got this expertise in quantum biology and neuroscience, and that is, I think, her secret sauce. And through that, she's helping these women tap into their unconscious minds to uncover and heal the root causes of all their psychological and emotional blocks. So it's a balanced and effective path to healing and growth. And I'm just so excited to have you. I mean, you've been on the Mamahood blog, Brilliant magazine, popular radio show, best name ever, 50 Shades of Bullshit. And I'm just super excited that you decided to take a break from the beach and a glass of Chardonnay and the horses to come chat to us.
Yes. I wish I was at the beach with a glass of Chardonnay and a horse, but I
know. Maybe one day we'll record an episode where we'll do that.
I love that.
So I want to talk about this, like right off the bat, the thing when I was looking at the work that you do and you talk about going from a goal setter to a goal getter. And this idea, and I think so many people relate because they come to me anyway, and they're like, I've tried everything. So let's talk about that, like goal setting, goal getting, and what do you do when nothing you're doing is working?
Yeah. So as I think we share kind of that same client, right? Our ambitious, smart, brilliant women.
Yep.
Not women that are like, sitting around doing nothing in the world. So I would, when clients come to me that say the same thing, right? Look, I've talked about it in therapy. I've talked about it with my girlfriends. I've read all the books. I've taken the courses. I've given it time. Why do I keep ending up in the same circumstances, in the same relationship, in the same, the same stuff keeps showing up? And look, if you could have figured it out and thought it through and did the thing, you would have already. So take it off the plate that there's anything that you're doing or not doing wrong. And let's talk about how to actually tap into where the magic is. So when you talked about goal setter versus goal getter.
Yeah.
So if you think about your body, and if we think about everything from the neck up is our conscious mind. Okay, so it's our critical faculties. It's everything we know. It makes us successful and effective. And it's our goal setter, and we use it all day. It's 10%, which means everything from the neck down, the rest of our body, the other 90% of our mind is our unconscious. So if the conscious mind is our goal setter, the unconscious mind is the goal getter, right? It's the operating system. It's the general. And most significantly, in my opinion, it is the literal library of everything you've ever experienced from every moment on this planet. So
wow.
Everything that's been said to you, everything that you've experienced, everything you've said to someone else, it's all stored at a cellular level in the body. So we think about memory being in the brain, and of course it's in the circuitry of brain, but it's really cellular. And we know this to be true, right? We see it in generational stuff that gets handed down. Like people talk about like generational stuff that comes from, past generations.
Right.
Crap that
Traumas,
we carry. Right. We see it in animals. We see it if, someone gets an organ transplant and they hated pickles their whole life, and all of a sudden pickles are their favorite thing, and come to find out that person whose heart that they got, pickles were their favorite food. So all of those elements. So if you think about it from an energetic standpoint and how that equates to our physical being, when we don't release that negative charge that's held in our body from all of this stuff, we see things like patterns and cycles and behaviors that never, ever change. Anxiety, depression, autoimmune disorders, right? Illness, injury, disease, it all manifests in the body. So to be able to tap into that and be able to release that negative charge of all the negative emotions. So when we do a release, I do it in a particular order: anger, sadness, fear, guilt, then shame, and then the limiting beliefs and limiting decisions that have formed as a result of all the traumas. But we get to release it in a painless, peaceful way, because we're not going back into any of the traumatic memory of the stuff that caused the pain in the first place. So we're not reinstalling all the old neurology over and over and over again. So those clients that come to us and say, I've done all the things and I keep going back to the same stuff. So I think a lot of work is really, really focused on awareness and clarity, which of course is super important, right?
Right.
The foundation for all of it. But if we just stop there and we have these aha moments and we clear out some old behavior, but if we don't replace it with new neurology, new strategy, new behavior, then the unconscious mind can't fill in the blank. So we do some work, right? We go to therapy, we do some work, and it feels good and we make some progress. And then life comes at you, because it always will. And instead of staying even at that progress point, it's like a magnet or a rubber band. And it's just like, bam, right back to the old stuff. The old self-talk, the old ways of thinking, the old ways of reacting and behaving, because if you haven't replaced that with new neurology, new strategy, new behavior, it's got to go back to what it knows.
It can't be a change. Yeah, I talk about that a lot on this show, is that people focus on releasing, right? But they don't really think about what are they installing or replacing it with. And so when someone's like, I don't have time to meditate, or I don't have time to think about what I want, or any sort of creation toward the positive, they're like, I don't get it. Why is it not working? Because otherwise the system just collapses back on itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we think about, I'm really curious about the quantum pattern protocol. When you said that, I was like, wait, what is that? Can you explain that and how that works? And
absolutely. So I want to, if I can, just start with kind of the overall. So here's the thing. My entire life, my whole, tagline, my whole method, my whole message to the world has always been your very best life, right? Because my intention is, whoever you are, if you're my best girlfriend or you're my new client or I meet you at the grocery store, I want you to live your version of your very best life, because it's different for all of us. But the truth is, we can't go from stuck or unhealed or sad or resentful or whatever to living our very best life. So in order to get there, first we have to get clear, right? We have to get crystal clear on what it is we actually want.
Right.
And then we have to clear all the stuff that doesn't serve us, so we can actually create the life that we desire and actually execute and live it, instead of just continually wishing for it. So you have to clear the story to create the life, because so many people get stuck in the story. And you want to tell a different story. You want a different story. You want a different future. You want a different ending. You have to stop telling the old one. And it's what keeps people tethered to all the old stuff. And just that weight of it's impossible to heal, move forward, transform, grow, create if you're just stuck in all the past story. And we all want partnerships that are fulfilling and amazing, personally and professionally, but you have to clear the pattern to create the partnerships, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You can't keep the old patterns and expect to have these incredible, extraordinary partnerships. We have to clear the should to create the can. And I think you were talking about this recently around the whole should thing. And I love that.
Screw the should life. That's my thing.
Yes. And I always say, quit shooting all over yourself.
Yeah.
Be done with that. So you got to, clear the cycles to create the confidence, because so many times we've been through so much and we don't really trust ourselves anymore, because we're like, I don't know, I thought I had it. And, look how that turned out. So again, clearing those cycles to create the confidence, clearing the resentment to create the results, right? What are we holding on to that we're just so bitter about, and then wondering why we can't achieve and actually, execute on the things that we want? And we have to clear the loss to create the love. So that's kind of the basis of the foundation. And the quantum pattern protocol is my framework that I use as a step-by-step process to initiate growth and healing and transformation in my clients. It's a 3-phase process.
Okay.
Kind of it takes us through. And as you can imagine, the first phase is clarity, and then clear, and then create. And it's really taking us through the whole process. So it starts with getting really clear on where you've been, what you want, and what's underneath and driving it all, which oftentimes and that's kind of a deep dive, but it's using quantum linguistics to really tap into understanding the dysfunctional stuff strategy that's running and what's really driving it, which always comes down to either an or a less, right?
Okay, so let's talk about what you said, quantum linguistics?
Yes.
Explain that.
So if I'm asking you questions, and I would just be asking you regular questions, and then you would be processing and you would be answering them. But when we involve quantum linguistics, we're asking it in a way that feels confusing sometimes, so that we can tap into that other side of the brain where we can access what's underneath.
Oh, I love it. Okay, I call that as wisdom seeking questions, because they're questions, they're like journaling, coaching, reflective questions that when I was asked them or I asked them to someone else, they're like, wait, what? I don't get it. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Like, it's just a word puzzle, mind scramble kind of way of asking something or using words.
And sometimes, so let me give you a perfect example.
Let's get some examples. I love these.
So, part of the work that we do I do what I call creating your soul connection codex, which is a values elicitation. Because if you're not clear on the things that drive you, you can never make values driven decisions. Right? And we want to make values driven decisions so we can have a clean yes and a clean no, because without that, we're constantly in the fatigue and drama and noise of decision fatigue, which is like the devil, right? Living in baby, not trusting ourselves, not having that ability to powerfully just own it and have it be a clean yes or a clean no and be done with it and move on. So when we do that values elicitation, I will tell people, like, we're going to come back to this later. So if we're doing relationship work and we're doing a values elicitation around, without these things, it cannot be. Now, here's where it gets like super quantum linguistic-y. Later, we're going to come back to these values, right? So we're going to elicit them, then we're going to reorder them. We're only taking the top 10 in order of priority. The hierarchy might change 2 through 9. Top value never changes. Okay. But let's say then this, they were healing, we've done this whole values elicitation. We've created their aligned attraction blueprint with their non-negotiables and their desires, and they have this incredible menu now. And the ability to know within seconds if this person is a fit or not without spending all this time trying to guess. Now, once they're in a relationship, we're going to go back to that values elicitation, and I'm going to ask them this very confusing question. So let's say the top value is love. Okay. I'm going to say, how much love is not in your life right now? So instead of saying, all right.
How much love is not in your life? Okay.
Right? So it's confusing, and you have to think about it differently versus, all right, between 0 and 100, what percentage of love do you feel like is in your relationship? And you're like, 50, 70, whatever the answer is. It's a different answer when we tap into how much of this is not present. So that's just an example.
I love that. That's so great. Do you have any other examples that our listeners can jot down that can get them thinking about things in a different way?
That's a great question. So when I'm doing that particular session, we're really trying to get at, a lot of people have a hard time when you ask them what they want. They start telling you everything they don't want, which is a huge piece of the beginning work that we do, because again, and this is, it's just so critical, because the fastest way to change your reality is to get super clear about what's going on up here. And so I do an exercise where we very quickly can switch that thinking. But here's the truth, right? As human beings, every day, we think between 65,000, 85,000 thoughts. It's a lot of thoughts.
That's a lot of thoughts.
90% of those thoughts are recycled. They're the same thoughts we thought yesterday, the day before, the week before, the month before, for sure in the middle of the night when we're ruminating on all the what ifs and running all the scenarios. Problem with that is 75% of those thoughts are negative.
Okay.
Most of my clients who are, like I said, ambitious, successful women, I get a lot of pushback. They're like, I get the mindset piece. Like, I'm a positive thinker.
Right.
But when we analyze it, what you don't realize is, because how our conscious mind is wired, so focused on all the things we don't want. I don't want to be in this financial position anymore. I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm not cherished and adored. I'm sick of just like surviving every day. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want this stress and pressure. So here's the problem. The universe and the unconscious mind, it doesn't hear the clarifying don't. It just knows, damn, you are really focused on that. I have to
whack, right? And what's not working. Yes.
So it's why people end up dating the same person or marrying the same person over and over and over again, or end up in the same conflicts in their career or in their families or in their friendships, or financially. And it's as simple and as complex as that, but we do an exercise together where I have you think about two walls, and one is your away wall and one is your toward wall. And on your away wall is all the things you don't want in life, right? Everything you don't want more of, again, ever. And we're just going to write it all down.
Okay.
And so it's different for everyone. So if I asked you, Marnie, if you were to close your eyes, you're in an actual physical room, or you don't have to close your eyes, but if you think about the wall that has everything you don't want, where is it?
Just in my room, if I was going to imagine that.
Yeah.
I just put it on that wall over there, which people can't see.
Is that your left wall?
Yeah, my left wall. Very good. Yeah, my left. Right. Looking at you, my left wall.
So for you, all right, your away wall is over there. Got it.
Okay.
Now, so then to your right is going to be your toward wall. And on that wall is everything you want. All your hopes, dreams, desires, right?
Okay.
So make that list. And then I want you to keep the toward wall list accessible always. So screenshot it, take a picture of it, put it on your phone, make it your screensaver. I don't care, whatever you have to do.
Right.
When you find yourself not feeling good in your body or just spiraling and just knowing, so here's what I would have you do. I would have you wear a rubber band for 3 days.
Okay.
So in 72 hours, we can actually rewire your brain and change your physical reality. So what's going to happen is, and we would go into like frequency and thoughts and vibrations and teaching you the emotional guidance scale. But here's the most important key part of this is, for 3 days, I want you to wear a rubber band. Every single time you catch yourself, either knowingly like spinning out, thinking about stuff, whatever, or not feeling good, I want you to stop and pause. And I guarantee 99.9% of the time, you will have been thinking about something on that away wall.
Yes.
Thinking about something that you don't want and you feel it. So as soon as the awareness occurs, could be in the moment, could be an hour later, I want you to snap the rubber band as hard as you can. And like, I have some clients, like they'll send photos, like welts, right? And it has to hurt. It has to be a pattern interrupt. And then I want you to choose a better feeling thought. And it can be as simple as looking at your toward wall list and focusing on something with emotion of like something that you want, right? And if you don't have access to that, or you can't, whatever, then I want you to think about one thing. It could be the smallest, tiniest thing that you are truly, genuinely grateful for, because that's going to raise the vibration. And then lastly, if you're still kind of in that stuckness, I want you to ask yourself, who can I serve in this moment? And it doesn't have to be
that one. That's so great.
Gesture. You could literally text a girlfriend and say, hey, thinking about you, honey, love you, hope you're having a great day. Bring the trash can down for your sweet little neighbor, like whatever it is, or just send an intention or a prayer to someone that you love. But get out of your head, right? Get out of your head, get out of that space. And what happens is when we start to flip the focus and we start to rewire the brain and install that new neurology, it's so fascinating what starts to show up in people's lives so fast. Instead of, there's never a parking spot, right? I'm always driving around these stupid, I am a magnet for miracles. So everywhere I go, like parking spots are just there.
That's what I say. I'm like, activate parking angel.
Yes. And same, women, my clients will come to me and they're like, everybody I meet, is the same man, like self-absorbed, totally inconsiderate, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yep, super awesome. You're going to keep just meeting those men.
Yeah, exactly. Arguing for your limitations.
Right? So let's flip the focus. Let's install some new neurology and watch how fast things change in your world.
Amazing. Okay, last thing I want to talk about before we finish is, because I find this super interesting concept. And you talk about the movie Inside Out. So my two favorite things, Inside Out and talking about time. And so you have this methodology called the quantum time release.
Yes.
Why do people, I mean, I talk about people having time scarcity and time denial, like, like, oh, I'll do that one day, or there's never enough time. And doing both of those at the same time is really shitty. Mm-hmm. So I'm fascinated with time. What is time release? How does it work? And what does it have to do with Inside Out?
Oh my gosh, everything. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the release of negative emotion.
Yes.
Right? So quantum time release is one of the most magical experiences you'll ever have. It's been used for hundreds of years to release that charge of that built up negative emotion in the body. It's about a 3-hour session.
Okay.
And it's a completely unconscious process, meaning you're not unconscious. You're chill, zen, hanging out in your favorite chair or your bed or whatever. Your eyes are closed for most of the time. But we're going to tap into that other 90%. We're going to tap into the unconscious mind and find root cause of those emotions, right? Anger, sadness, fear, guilt, and shame. Now, it is not anything you have conscious memory of. We are not looking for something that happened to you when you were 5 that made you sad.
Okay.
So I want you to think about like a ribbon or a piece of twine. Like I think about twine because I literally grew up in a horse barn in a tiny town in southern Minnesota. So we would pull the twine off the hay bales. But anyway, ribbon, whatever. And any time in your life, so each negative emotion has its own ribbon.
Okay.
Any time in your life after that root cause, which could be before, during, or after birth, between the ages of 0 and 7, that you have a significant emotional experience with each of those emotions, it's like a marble goes on that ribbon. Okay. Yep. So today, if something happens that makes you angry, it's not the thing today. It's 30, 40, 50, 60 years of marbles behind the thing of anger. Quantum time release releases and clears all those freaking marbles, all that gestalt of all of that charge around that emotion. So we can transmute it. We get the learnings. So we re-anchor in like the truth of who you actually are.
Right.
And we get to future pace and create new relationship with those emotions going forward. And between each emotion release, then afterwards I'll say like, okay, let's do a test. And I want you to now actually think about a very specific event in your past. So and I want you to go back and remember it, where this particular emotion, whichever one we're working with, was a problem.
Okay.
We want you to check and see if it still has a charge, though you may realize it does not. And everyone is just like, whoa. So, and then I'll say, all right, tell me what it is. And so they'll tell me what it was. And then they'll like, if you would have asked me that question 3 hours ago, I would have been right in it. I would have been crying or angry, or I would have felt my blood pressure boil, or I would have gone right back into the shame of whatever it was. And they're like, there literally is no charge. It's gone. So we have this freedom to clear all of that weight so that we can actually be open to what's meant for us. And the creative juices start flowing and the clarity is wild and ideas start coming and possibilities that didn't exist before for, who are you really? Like, part of this process is really also discovering like who you are now.
This is so great. I've had so many amazing guests today. I've just been doing podcasts I'm having this experience that someone would have that would be like binging my podcast. And I'm like, this is the power of talking about what is possible and what we can create and what freedom we actually do have if we actually look at these different modalities and we create some space between the thought and the feeling and the belief, the emotion, all of those things. We just completely absorb ourselves in them to where like, I am the trauma. And the way you're talking about this is like, so, I don't want to say matter of fact, but you're like, this is a thing. This happened because of here. We have this thing. And then we can just like vanish it, right? Because you, me, we are not the feeling. We are not the thought. We are like this human thing, but we just crush ourselves. This is so freeing. So tell me now, Riana, what's the connection to Inside Out?
Well, because Inside Out, like all of her little emotions are in there doing their thing. And they're like, whoa, that's scary. So like unconscious mind, right, keeps us safe. But when you're about to, like, for instance, this is a perfect example. if you're about to decide, so if I have a client on the phone and they're like, I want this so bad, let me think about it. I'm like, what is it that you want to think about? So let me tell you what's happening. The amygdala hijack is happening.
Right.
The moment you decide, okay, I want to do this, I want to step in, line in the sand, I don't want to live like this anymore, your unconscious mind goes, whoa, 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 whoa. Look, we know how to survive in the trauma that we know. We have survived it every day. It's comfortable. It's in our self-imposed box. We know how to survive this. Stepping into that is scary AF.
Right.
So that fear starts driving stuff. And then shame about something that's, lingering. So all the little inside out emotion people that are pushing their buttons and catapulting stuff, guess what? We get to release that using quantum time release and then implementing the rest of all the cool stuff we do inside of the framework of the protocol. But so that we get to clear the charge and the built up yuck from all the negative emotions.
Clean our filters.
Yeah, clean our filters. And if you can imagine, I always feel like when I talk about it, it's like this freeing, I don't know, it's like being in the water and having weight belts on, if you're diving or something, and then it's like you're kind of you're going through it and it's like hard to move, and then the weight belts come off and you're just like, oh, I'm weightless, and I'm just kind of like, it's just that release of that heavy without, again, I'm gonna reiterate this because it's such an important part of the work that I do specifically, without spending time in the drama and the story of all the crap that's happened before, right? We don't need to go back and revisit all the childhood stuff and have that cathartic thing to relive it all, to release it. In fact, I would argue that the more you do that, the more you stay there forever and you stay tethered to all of the trauma rather than being able to release it, actually heal it, and move on.
Yeah, I think that's because people get so attached to their story. I always thought about traditional therapy too. Like you just go there for 30 minutes and you talk about what sucks. You just are verbally anchoring, right, to whatever that story is. And for someone to ask you a few questions about it.
Yeah.
And it just seems like there's and I went to therapy. I love therapy. I think it's really good for certain things, right? But after a while, you're just like, I'm basically going to talk to this person and tell them my story. And so that someone will say, yeah, you're right.
Totally. And here's the thing. All of those things, therapy, girlfriends, books, it all has benefit, right?
Right.
100%. But the thing is, it's temporary resolution and peace.
Yeah.
Then you go home. So you had, you talked to your therapist, you bitched about the thing, you go have happy hour with your girlfriends and you bitched about the thing and it felt good in the moment. And then you go home and you go to bed and you wake up at 2:37 and you have that empty feeling in your gut and you put yourself back to sleep. So the temporary resolution that leaves you back in that space of having that emotional and mental relapse, instead of being able to go at it differently. Because the truth is, right, all of that temporary stuff, it costs you time, money, energy, costs you faith. Am I ever going to feel how I want to feel? Am I ever going to be loved the way I want to love? And the truth is, you cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So that's why we have to tap in.
I love that. Oh my gosh. So good. So good. This has been so amazing. Ladies, there's links to the gifts that Riana has for you in the show notes. She has on her website a journal to fall in love with yourself again. She has a deep dive into how your thoughts hold the key to unlocking your full potential, especially if you are post-divorce. She has a post-divorce journal, a values-driven decision. For those of you that are in decision fatigue and want to get out of that, I would definitely check that. And you can even do a complimentary call with her. So you're so generous. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. And additionally, because I don't think that you have that, I just recorded a 27-minute masterclass where I really walk you through every step of the protocol and give you here's something you can do right now. And would love to offer that to your listeners.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Well, look, here's the thing. There's so many modalities. I was talking to someone about coaching, and she said, I've done all these things. And she said that she went to a Tony Robbins seminar, bless Tony Robbins. And there's a guy on the stage and he said, like, you know, do you believe that I can help you or whatever? And the guy was like, I don't know, I've tried everything. And Tony Robbins apparently said, everything? That's impossible. And the guy was like, busted. And I think that the modalities that you're talking about here are so profound, and that every listener can go back and look at, wow, where's an opportunity here for me to actually create some space, because I am not my shitty feeling. Yeah. So once you know that, what can you do? So remember, always and in all ways, it is your responsibility to life check yourself. Thank you, Riana, for being here. We'll see you all next time. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Listen, if you're feeling stuck, I want you to know you're not alone, and you don't have to settle for it. I've created a free quiz to help you pinpoint what's draining your energy and exactly how you can fix it. So head over to decodeyourdestinyquiz.com and take the 60-second quiz right now. That's decodeyourdestinyquiz.com. And if you're ready to dive deeper, you can book a free no-obligation consultation at marnibatista.com/private coaching. That's Marni, M-A-R-N-I, Batista, B-A-T-T-I-S, as in Sam, T-A.com/private coaching, all one word. Let's take the first step to creating a life you love on your terms. I'm Marni, and I'll see you next time.